You see that now. The Australian Strategic Policy Institute, for instance, just did a paper warning that, or one of their scholars did a paper recently warning about Chinese competition even for Antarctica, that's suggesting that they're just building a big new base there. And they've got their eye on potentially resources, military technology, et cetera, et cetera. The competition really is in our face, isn't it?
Yeah, and competition over Antarctica is growing. We've got several Chinese bases on Australian Antarctic territory. We've done that with, in my view, a certain degree of naivety about what's happening, particularly because of Chinese ability to launch, what we're now seeing, almost saturation low Earth orbit, polar orbit satellite coverage of the Australian maritime zones. And this has made is one of the reasons why we need to get nuclear propulsion submarines. Our diesel electrics are now subject to being picked out of the water when they come up to surface to recharge their batteries. The wake of that snorkel surfacing is now detectable, and with almost saturation coverage coupled with AI and drones, they're basically, you can pick them out of the water, and that means that you've got to avoid that. You've got to stay underwater. So, but let's go back to Antarctica for a minute. We have taken a very simple view, in my view, towards the competition in Antarctica. China is looking at this with the long game in mind. We can barely agree on building a runway. We've decided not to build a runway when it's clearly in our interests to do so, in my view. And we face the prospect of more competition and that use of Antarctica by, so-called scientific purposes by others, I think is seriously questionable.
Now, I just wonder, just finally, Chinese foreign minister, and also on the Politburo, which is even more important, Wang Yi visited Australia last week, made a big fuss. He made a very public 1 hour meeting with former Prime Minister Paul Keating because Paul Keating is a real lapdog of the Chinese line. He parrots all their lines, the most ferocious defender of communist China. It seems to have got right up the nose of the government, quite naturally. And it was interesting that Penny Wong, our foreign minister, then came out of the meeting, her meeting with Wang Yi, listing all the grievances that she'd raised with him, things like, anti-democratic, all that kind of stuff. It seems to me that visit backfired, that this was very poor diplomacy by China, and shocked the government into confronting it in language I haven't seen since the election.
So it's interesting. There's a real reluctance from Chinese officials to let go of the wolf warrior diplomacy. I think that it comes with a certain sense of entitlement, a sense of confidence, a sense of we're big, you're small, learn your place. That is not very, it doesn't go down well in egalitarian Australia. And it's generated some pushback. So it actually might give the government a bit of breathing space, because Penny Wong as foreign minister and Albanese as the prime minister have faced a little bit of pressure from the left about being too pro-AUKUS, being too sympathetic to the United States, not critical enough. And I think, seeing the Chinese foreign minister at work, I think maybe even gives them a bit more confidence that they are on the right track, that AUKUS is right, and that respectful but polite and firm pushback is in fact completely appropriate for Australia as it engages with China.
John Blaxland, thank you so much for your time.
Good to be with you, Andrew.